for everyone who watches this, and hopefully, Simon, it's a couple of your family members, because it certainly won't be any of mine. But Simon's been of a lot of help to me with website and having some form of social media presence. And he's long suffering because he's generally getting on to me about a social media update, and I never get back to him, and so on and so forth. So we just thought we'd do this. Let's call it a podcast, Simon. I don't even know what's a podcast or not, but
I don't think we your faces, so we can call it a podcast.
Yeah, let's do it. You know, I like calling it a podcast too, because it'll really wind up my mate Tim Butt. And Tim produces Shirley Robertson's podcast, and he's so anal about sound and the look and the video, and he'll be watching. He'll have switched off by now because the sound quality won't be good enough. So let's go with podcast. So we just thought we'd do a quick wrap up of what's been going on, because I haven't kept on top of updates really at all this year. But yeah, you know, nice to sort of keep in touch with people in this way. So thanks for the opportunity. And Simon, you know, you're world famous as well. Great sailor, pitman, bowman extraordinaire, offshore RC44s, and website man extraordinaire. So thanks, mate, for everything you do.
I think it's important to make sure that everybody realizes in 2024 you're going to become an influencer as well. We're going to have your TikTok. Yeah, you're going to become a TikTok guru as well. That's something that we're going to throw out there as well.
I mean, I think that's something my kids do, but okay. All right, Simon, I'm with you, mate. All right. So anyway, yes, you know, I guess one of our things here is to go through the year a little chronologically, and it's just been such a busy year, and you know, I hope a lot of this doesn't come across as being a bit too kind of gushy, you know, but just been so lucky with the people that I work with. You know, it's just, that's been, if I could just, a general overall highlight of the year has been the people I've hung out with and the people I've been lucky enough to work for. And that started off, we won the 5.5 meter worlds in 2022, and we had an offer on our boat, the David Holland designed boat that we built here in Cowes through the pandemic. You know, and I've said it before quite a lot, but again, you know, just hats off to Peter Morton, who I have worked for and sailed with. Just had a vision to build a 5.5 here in Cowes, and it's never been done successfully, really, the last 20-25 years of someone you know, sailing other than a Wilkie Swiss design boat. And we started it off with CFD and a whole bunch of great people involved. You know, it was like a mini America's Cup thing, and then boom, you know, the pandemic hit, and how lucky were we, you know. Morty then took it on, but we built two boats alongside each other, just keeping local builders and riggers and so on busy, and it's fantastic. Anyway,
what I thought was cool about that project was how much it was actually done on the island. I didn't actually appreciate how much you guys could actually do on the island, the Isle of Wight.
Yeah, and it was an eye-opener to me actually too, Simon. You know, before the pandemic, I didn't move here for work, for sailing work. I moved here for family, and yeah, it's a real eye-opener. You know, it's the history of the island, shipbuilding and marine, you know, kind of industry, and it's alive and well. Could always be better, I guess, but certainly alive and well. There's a hell of a lot of talent. Anyway, that boat we won in 2022 ended up being sold, and we launched into building another boat on a really tight timeline to be ready for 2023, and that was pretty consuming through the winter for me. I was running the project and building the masts and so on, and you know, when you're on a tight timeline, you really need everyone to sort of give a little more and invest a little more passion than just building a boat. And, you know, big shout out to Gavin and his brother Glyn Tappenden and David Heritage and his team in getting the boat done on time and of very high quality. Whilst that was going on, there was we had an Etchells Worlds in Miami in April, which was, it's a big regatta. You know, I can't really remember how many boats, but it was around the 70 mark, I think, something like that. But a big build up. You know, we had regattas in December of 22, and then January, February, March, and culminated in the Worlds in April. And you know, the Etchells it's a class that's close to my heart. I've been sailing them for, well, close to 40 years now, and have been involved in the management of the class and so on, and been lucky enough to win a couple of Worlds. And I've been sailing for the last 5 years with Peter Duncan, who's become a good friend, and Peter's a renowned sailor, world champion in Melges 24s and J70s of recent times. And he hasn't actually won an Etchells Worlds, despite having sailed them for 50 years. He actually used to crew with, as a 12-year-old, with Skip Etchells back at his home club there on Long Island Sound. So, so very, very busy winter. And ultimately, I think we placed 6th at the Worlds, or maybe a little worse than that. I don't know, yeah, probably 6th with Mendels, with you know, our team is Mark Mendelblatt, Peter and myself. Always great to sail with those fellas. Very challenging class. Who's who of sailing, really. Lots of younger people as well, which was great to see.
Amazing, all these years, still 40 odd years, still competitive class, isn't it?
It is. It's really just, I think it's a couple of things. It's talent attracts talent. That's the first thing. It is fairly cost effective, I think, despite, you know, there's always concerns about the costs creeping up. But I think it is reasonably well handled. And yeah, I mean, it's a well managed class, you know. Yeah, but it's cool. White boats, white sails, you know, traditional racing format. I mean, there's not much cool about that, but the racing is fantastic, which makes it cool, you know. Yeah. So yeah, no, that was the winter anyway, Simon. We'll try and sort of keep this reasonably short, but yeah, pretty intense. I must say, I got to the end of April, pretty spent, you know, thinking, oh my God, I'm still got a summer ahead of me here, you know.
You're sticking transatlantic flights that stage, I know, that's for sure.
Yeah, no, for sure. And there was it was pretty frantic from then on for another month or so. We went to Garda with Morty and Louise Morton, had 2 5.5s there. Always a great trip, that one. It's a big thing in the 5.5 calendar, sort of season opener in Garda. That was, I mean, we ultimately, in the brand new boat, we broke the rudder clean off. We won the first race, we're winning the second race, rudder came off. Oh, well, I thought Morty was having a little bit of a moment in the back of the boat, but, you know, we looked back and there was the rudder blade floating, you know, out the back of the boat. Big night of repairs with some amazing local guys. These local boat builders got us back out on the water. They inserted a bit of solid metal in the rudder stock and the whole heap of carbon. But the next day it broke again, unfortunately. But anyway, so that was good. And then actually, what I did do a lot this year, and this reminds me, I then drove the boat down to the TP 52 regatta in Saint-Tropez, and then drove home from Saint-Tropez with my son, Charlie, who flew into Nice and got his way down to Saint-Tropez, you know, 16-year-old at that time. Okay. And we drove home together, and I've done quite a bit of road tripping in the 5.5 the last year. It's something I used to do a lot as a younger person, you know, in Australia.
It's very enjoyable. I used to do a lot as a nipper, you know, driving, vans and boats or trailers, that kind of stuff around Europe. It's actually pretty enjoyable. I quite enjoyed kind of time on your own, heading across the country, sleeping on a ferry, that kind of stuff. It's kind of fun.
Yeah. It's part of the sport, and it's something I hadn't done for a long time, and I had missed. So that was cool. A little byline to that story is on that note actually is Charlie and I got to Caen or Wistrom to catch the ferry over to Portsmouth, so down there in Brittany, and big mistake. We stayed overnight in a hotel. And there's obviously the refugee situation going on. And look, I won't go into the ins and outs, but the bottom line is there was five refugees on board the 5.5 tucked in the bow and stern tanks. So that was a bit of a drama. So yes, definitely one of the memories of this year. Yeah. So I guess from there leading into the summer, again, great people. I've worked with and where I first met you actually, worked with Team Aqua and Chris Bake, Cameron Appleton and the team in the RC44 class. We don't call it an RC44 anymore, do we?
I don't really know. I think the boat is still called an RC44, but the class is called the 44. God, I'm gonna get in trouble now. Jess will give out to me now for not knowing.
Yeah, 44 Cup, I think.
44. Sorry, yes, I should know that.
Yes. So yeah, and it's well, sorry, Jess, but let's try and dig our way out of that one. But fantastic class.
Amazing. Really well organized.
It's an interesting one, and it's not really grown beyond its kind of 10, 11, 12 boats.
It's amazing. I think the most I ever had was 13. I think 13 or 14 boats across whatever. I've been doing it for 13 odd years, maybe. I think it's gone on. I think it's the class is 17 years old. I think it is. This is I'm with my third or fourth team at this stage. I only got fired by one, just so the rest of the
just one.
Just one, surprisingly enough. But I think, yeah, in all that time, I think the most boats we had was 13 or 14. We're down to 8 or 9 now. And the problem is you can't get your hands on the boats anymore because the SSL guy bought up all the 44s for him.
Yes, that's right. Yes.
Outside his League Cup thing. And you can't. So there's 2 new boats that have been built by Powger. So there'll be two new boats now next year available.
Yes. Yeah. Well, that's good news.
Yeah.
I was almost going to say though, at the same time, Simon, to my mind, it's always good, I guess, if a class grows. And 8 or 9, okay, that's not great. You're on the precipice, but I know the owners are chipping in and building new boats, which is fantastic. However, the racing with the 10 boats has always been so good, first rate. And do you need 20 boats? I don't think so. It's not going to make the racing any better because the bottom line is, of those 10 boats, the first mark, they're bow to stern. It's so intense, and the talent on board is of such a quality that you could win a race and be last in the next one so easily.
You are.
We quite often see that.
It's
and
sport, or sorry, brutal class.
You're with Black Star there and making a massive effort, putting in a lot of time, and you could see the improvement there on Black Star, but it takes time, and I think the best things in sailing and in sport are things that are challenging and are hard and do take some time and take some thought and take some resource and take some commitment and so on. So I think it's a wonderful class. And
we got the new team. Christian put together the new team, started last year. We used the class boat for 2 events, then we got our own boat. It was the new build from Powder that was ordered by Artemis that they never took, and then we took that boat, and it took us 5 events, and we got a podium at the second last event of the year, and that was a hard fought. It was quite satisfying to get a podium. Yeah, the amount of work. Then the next event, then we got third last. Yeah, I mean, there's
Yeah,
nothing
yeah.
that class is good at putting manners on you pretty fast, like.
It is. Yeah, and you know, I did only did the one event this year with Aqua, and it's an interesting one in that you know, Cameron and Chris and the team have decided to rotate coaches through,
Yeah.
and for me, it's been great. You know, being busy, you don't have to commit to a whole season. And there's some gaps in the program. You can do other things, which I always see as a real opportunity. Um, uh, but when you come back, when you come back to the team, you're fresh,
Yeah.
you know, and it's great to see the people again. You've got more energy. You haven't seen them for a while, and you hit it pretty hard, and you actually come into it with a little more like fresh, with a fresh set of eyes, and you probably pick things up that you may not otherwise have seen. And you know, they've had some great coaches too. Brett Jones has done a lot with them, and Rod Davis over the past years has done some, and he's coming in again this year, which is great. So yeah, I mean, it's fantastic to share the responsibility with those guys as well.
I think it works with the team like Team Aqua as well because they're so well established. You know, the characters and the people inside the team. So I think bringing in different coaches kind of works. I don't know if that works for every team. Like I think a team like we need a permanent coach. Yeah, I think we need the same guy, the continuity.
Yes, yes, on the journey with you.
Yeah,
Yep.
exactly. Because we're learning, so the learning curve is still huge for us. We're a year, you know, a season and a bit in at this stage, you know. So
Yes. Yeah.
we've Luke Molloy coming in for next season. Sorry, he
Oh,
came from.
very good. He'll be great.
He will be, yeah, from
Yeah.
that point of view. Yeah.
That's a nice segue into the 52. Just to touch on that was a big part of my year as well. And I work with Interlodge, an American team, with and the owners Austin and Gwen Fragaman, who are from New York, members of the New York Yacht Club, and Austin. I think Austin had his 5th or 6th 80th birthday this year.
Oh wow.
Yeah, every year it seems like he's having his 80th. You know, I don't quite know how old he is, but suffice to say he's older than 80. Anyway, wonderful people and a great team. You know, it's similar to Aqua in a regard that there's such good sailors there that have been assembled. You know, it's a total pro team. And Luke is one of those. Luke, your coach, he does the runner on Interlodge, and he kind of helps lead the speed loop and prep all the sails and so on. Very organised. You know, we have Cameron at Appleton as well, does the tactics. Rod Dawson's on the main. Actually, I heard something about Rod Dawson the other day in that a very respected sailor who I won't name said to me, if you're in an offshore race and you put Rod Dawson or Noel Drennan on the main, the boat will just go faster. And they're the only 2 guys I've ever sailed with that happens. So I thought that's pretty interesting. That's quite an accolade.
Yeah. Especially considering Nitro is actually Irish. I'll take that.
Yeah.
He was born in Dublin.
I know. Yes. No, aware of that. I remember that. I've known him for quite a few years, Nitro, I guess 40 or so, and was aware that he had the Irish passport. Yeah. So yeah, Interlodge full of you know. I'm not going to mention them all, but great sailors who are all there for the right reasons. There's no egos. Yeah, I love a team and a culture where I must say, I mean, little segue into football. Well, the football I come from, there's a coach for the Sydney Swans, a guy called Paul Ruse, who won them as the coach their first premiership, and he's great footballer, superb record as a coach, and I've listened to lots of interviews with him. He's quite an inspiring guy, and some of the things that stick with me are, you know, comments like, and he had some challenging players, some big personalities, celebrities, guys that have been in trouble for various reasons, you know the type of people I mean, type of person I mean in professional sport, high profile. And a comment, it was attributed to Paul Roos, was you either behave yourself in or out of the organisation, and I subscribe to that. I really do. It's really up to the individuals how they behave, and I think the nicest teams I'm involved in are ones where really that is the culture. There's a code of behaviour that's really set by the team members, not by someone who is the boss. It's just embodied within the team that you'll be on time, you'll work hard, you won't leave till the work's done. Is a commitment to not only improving and being the best you can on the water, which is so important in this owner-driver environment we operate in. But you'll do it in a way to keep the environment enjoyable, and not too intense, which I think will take away from performance, and so on. And that really embodies, I think, Interlodge very well, as well as Team Aqua, So
I think that's an important element. Some people don't realize that about the sport. It's a professional sport. Everyone works for themselves. We're all self-employed. I know at my level, everyone's replaceable. Ultimately, and the day you think that you're not replaceable, it's the day you'll be cut from something. But at the end of the day, you have to make sure these men and women who own these boats have a good time. Because they're spending their hard-earned money to go away sailing. They want to have a good time, and you have to make sure while also winning. So there's a fine line, in between going out for a few beers at the sailing and make sure they have a good time, and then perform the next day, and the boat being ready to go.
That's it. Yeah, no, and it's a commitment to. I like that. There needs to be a commitment to excellence, whilst knowing you're not going to win every day, because it's tough. It's tough competition, as we said before. There needs to be a commitment to excellence, and which means really, and sailing is ultimately a preparation sport, so that we're ready. The boat's ready. We've got our areas ready. We're ready. We've looked after ourselves. We're reasonably fit enough to do the jobs that we're going to recover well each day. We're not going to get injured in the first, wind of a winch, and so on. So, yeah.
We better push on for the rest of the season, dog. We're lagging behind here a little bit.
Yeah, no, exactly. We'll move on, and Simon. So the bigger boats did fill a lot of the middle of the year, and then toward the end of the year, jumped back into sailing, and I'm sort of still. Well, I feel very fortunate that at my old age, I'm still able to sail and
it's
to
impressive
compete.
to see someone of your generation still being able to sail. Some of the younger people want people like you to retire at some point. give some young people a bit more work.
But I think the sailing is a real. It's important, I think, for my coaching work. The two blend in well, and I think too much coaching for sure. It can take you away from really being empathetic as to what the sport really is like, and some of the random elements and so on. It helps me certainly just keep things in perspective, understand what the sailors are really going through, understanding actually how hard it is to get the boat off the start line consistently, and so on and so forth. And I possibly also, when you do speak to sailors, maybe you do so with a little more authority, let's say, and that they know you understand. And so anyway, so back in the 5.5s with Morty in Sardinia for the Worlds in September, and that was a little bit of a chastening experience. 5.5's a bit different. The meter boat classes in that you can target different sort of areas of the wind range, let's say, and we've definitely in that Holland boat, we're definitely targeted the so let's call it the 12 knot plus area. And unfortunately for us, the wind was very light. But worse again was this swell rolled in from the north, and we had up a couple of the days like a 2-meter swell with very little wind, and we learned a lot. That if it was flat water and light winds, we weren't too bad. If we got a good start, we could cling on and possibly finish top 5 or 6. Yep. But one of the days, after 2 good starts, we finished 19th, a pair of 19s. We just could not get out of our own way, upwind or down. It's pretty tough, but sort of quite proud of the team because we never lost the plot. Morty was super, super, philosophical and just totally understanding of, let's not beat ourselves up. We're sailing quite well, we're communicating quite well, we're doing all we can, but we just can't hold a lane, and we're just slow downwind, and so just holding our sort of stuff together was something that I'm
always appreciate. I always appreciate when that actually comes from the owner, the guy paying all the bills, and he's the most reasonable, or she can be the most reasonable person on the boat, telling everything. All right, guys, yeah, they should be the most wound up and annoyed from the whole situation.
Yes, yeah,
wins,
that it is true, and yeah, I mean, it's another crew member, fantastic sailor, Rory Scott. There's so much respect for that guy. Spells his first name funny, but apart from that, he's very driven. I'm sure it could be said that I'm quite driven. And we're just doing the best we can for our team and for Morty and ourselves. And Morty's always the voice of common sense and reason. And so anyway, that was that. But a great trip, really well looked after by the Mortons. Louise came 6th, I think, in the Worlds. We came 7th, I think, a point behind them. They were in the Quigley boat, really nice boat, and they sailed well. So yeah, nice trip. I've got to get in there. I know we're running short on time, but I've got to get in there. The 6-meter Worlds, and if there was a highlight from the year, that would be it. And the regatta was held in Cowes. I was engaged as a coach by Team Scoundrel, which is headed by Jamie Hilton. Jamie was a mate from the Etchells class, got his hands on a 6-meter and is quite passionate about it. And the 6 meters, for people that don't know, they're a development class that's been around for about 100 years. Wonderful history. The history is really valued within the class. There's books and there's a history officer and so on. Boats are all different shapes and sizes. And Scoundrel was a 1989 wooden boat designed by Ian Howard, and varnished on the outside. I mean, it's the first time I've ever seen a job list, for a boat which included varnishing, on the job list. Kind of like, really? Not really sure what my expectations were going in, other than knowing Jamie is a very, very solid and experienced helmsman. Yeah. And the crew he'd assembled, which I'll just run through them quickly, was Alan Terhune, Dave Hughes, Mike Marshall, and Addison Caproni. Knew they were a very solid team. Anyway, there we were in Cowes. I'll abbreviate it. The bottom line is they won the Worlds with a race to spare, despite really no one having... Well, Jamie had 3 or 4 years, I think, of 6 meters, possibly a bit more. But most of the team, the first time they laid eyes on a 6-meter was in May, where they came across for a quick trip. And a lot of lessons there. Great sailors will always make a boat go fast. People new to a class aren't constrained by the things that you must do in a particular class. And I think there's a lot of that in the 5.5 and the 6 meter of how to sail the boats and what you can and can't do. You know, in the 6 meter, for example, a lot of crews stay down inside the hull of the boat and sort of get themselves up the windward side, because that's more righting moment. Apparently, I'm yet to really do the study. But the scoundrel guys, they sat up on the side like you would on an Etchells. It was a tricky week, you know, and there's 4 crew there, 4 great sets of eyes. And there they are, up hiking the boat, looking around, totally aware of what's going on in the environment and so on and so forth. And, you know, you've got 4 brains on it rather than 1, you know. So anyway, great week of hanging out with those fellas. You know, we went and played some cricket on Bramble Bank just before the world's got going, super low tide. You know, sent the boys out into the wilds of cows on one night, and the young nipper, guy called T Root.
You know,
we don't need to go into the details, but you know, there were some stories that came out the next morning. So a lot of fun, you know, a lot of fun, and ultimately resulted in, you know, the guys winning and Jamie just giving the most amazing speech and so on. And actually a Christmas present arrived, which was a photo book of the trip, which I was just reading yesterday. So